several nations, actually. One of them being Israel, and another being the Arab nations. And you remember that God told him, look up at the stars. I'm going to give you many descendants. Nations will come out of you. And he said, I'm going to bless you. All those who bless you, I will bless, and all those who curse you, I will curse. And I will be with you. And so Abraham believed. He believed God. And God counted it to him as righteousness. That is, he was approved by God because of his faith, because he believed. And God did it. You remember, how long did it take from the time that he was promised to have children, have a child? Remember, when God promised him, Abraham and Sarah, they had no children. They had no children. So they waited 25 years. At times, they lost patience. Sarah, she came up with her own plan. Take my servant, Hagar, and through her have a child, and I'll take her as my own child, and so we'll have children through her. But that was not God's plan. He did it. Abraham followed the plan of his wife, but God did not accept that one. The name of that child, according to the Bible, was Ishmael. But that was not God's plan. God said, no, it's going to be through your wife, Sarah, that you are going to have the son, the promised son. And through him is going to come the one through whom all the nations on the earth will be blessed. And when he heard it that one time, it had already been several times by that time, he's already old. Do you remember how old he was? 99 years old. And Sarah, 89 years old. And you know what he did when he heard that promise that time? Not the other times, but this time, he laughed. And later, when God came to him in the form of, he looked like a human, him and the two angels that were with him. When he appeared to him and said, your wife is going to have a child, and you are to call the child Isaac. Isaac, which means he laughs or laughter. And what did she do when she heard it? When Sarah heard this, she laughed. So it's very appropriate that their child, when they actually finally did have the child, was named Isaac, laughter. So it happened, just like God had said. Within a year from the time that he appeared to them, she gave birth to a child, and they did name the child He Laughs, or Laughter, Isaac. So there she is with him, and she's very happy. But, you remember, God tested him later. You remember what happened? God tested him, and he said, take your son, your only son, the one that you love, and take him to a certain place that I will show you, and offer him as a sacrifice to me. And Abraham did it. That's the amazing thing. If I was told the same thing, I would think I was going crazy. I'm hearing stories. I couldn't do that. But he did it because he had learned over 25 years of waiting for this child that God does fulfill his promises, even when it seems impossible. So he considered that since this is the child of the promise, and through this son I'm going to have many offspring, through this son he's going to bless the offspring of this son. He's going to have all the earth will be blessed, right? Through that son, the child of the promise. This was going to happen. So he did it because he considered that God is definitely going to fulfill his promise. even if I kill my child, God is able to rise him from the dead. So he did. He went, he bound his son on the altar, and was about to kill him, offer him, when God called and he said, Abraham, don't hurt your son. I now see that you have not, even your only son, your beloved son, you have not withheld from me. Because of that, I'm going to bless you. And he counted it to him as righteousness. That is what God accepts. So when he heard that from God, he looked behind him. Remember what happened? He looked behind him and he saw a ram. A ram. Just like in the Old Testament. Remember? Abel, what did he offer to God that was accepted to him by God? It was a lamb. Later, what happened with Noah? When they got off the ark, what did God accept? What did God consider to be pleasing to him? Again, he offered lambs, not just lambs, but goats and other things too. He offered that to God. God accepted it, and he made a promise, a covenant with him. So when he saw the ram, he knew that was what God had prepared in advance for them. It was just sitting there. He didn't even notice. He was ready to do just like God had said. And God, and the one thing about the acceptable sacrifices is they have to be perfect. They have to be perfect. Nothing wrong with it. And there was nothing wrong with this one. Oh, hello. Good to see you. Yeah. So he was very happy. He took this ram and he offered it as a burnt sacrifice instead of his son. And this is a picture about God's plan, what he planned to do. Instead of his son, that animal died. So later on, his son grew up. At that time, he was probably somewhere around 20 years old. He's big enough to carry a big bundle of sticks, for sure, for the offering. He was 20 years old, and then later on, his father arranged a marriage. I don't know, do you do that in Pakistan? Some places in the Philippines and other countries, they do that. They arranged a marriage. Isaac didn't have a wife, so his father arranged a marriage. Got a wife for him, and her name was Rebecca, just like our middle daughter. Her name is Rebecca. Hello. Good to see you. So, but the problem was, he loved her very much. He was very happy because his mother had just died. Sarah had just died, and now he got married, and he loved her very much. So he was comforted after the death of his mother, and she was a beautiful woman too. So the problem was that they waited 20 years, and she was not getting pregnant. They didn't have any children. How then was it going to be fulfilled, the promise that he would increase their descendants? So he prayed to God, and God helped them so that she became pregnant, and she gave birth to twins. Remember the older one? Interesting story about the birth. The first one started to come out, and then he went back in. It wasn't quite went back in, and the other one came out. And the one that ended up being the firstborn was kind of red and hairy. Those were his features, and so he was named Red, or Edom in their language, and hairy, Esau. So his name was Esau. And the younger brother, when he came out, he was grabbing hold of the leg of his older brother, like they were wrestling for first position, even in the womb. It had been quite an interesting pregnancy for her. So that's ended up how they were, too. Later on, they grew up, and the older brother, he was red and hairy and very manly, and he loved to go out on hunts, and his father loved the game that he would catch. I think antelope is pretty common there, and his father loved him more, favoritism. Loved him more, but Jacob, the younger one, he liked staying around home and probably was helping his mother, and he ended up being the favorite of the mother. And so the older brother, by tradition, the older brother is to get the birthright. He's the higher position of the sons, and he would get the greater portion of the inheritance and all that. So that was going to automatically go to him. But the younger brother was remembering the promises that would also go to the older brother, the promises of God that through them would come the promised, through whom all families of the earth would be blessed. So he wanted that blessing. He wanted that birthright. So he kind of tricked his brother one time. Later on, when the father was getting old and he was actually blind because of his old age, he was thinking that probably now I'm close to death. So he called in the older brother, say, go out and hunt me some game and then cook it the way I like it, and then I will bless you. I will give you the birthright. But the younger brother learned about it, and the mother was with him in the planning to trick the father. Remember what happened there? So he ended up tricking the father and getting the birthright. And the older brother was so angry that he planned to kill him. So the younger brother, Jacob, he ran off. He ran off, and on the way, God made him some promises through a dream. This is the dream. And he said that I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to bless you, and increase your descendants, and you are, what's going to happen? I'm going to have to make this a little bit shorter. It's taking too long. But anyway, through your descendants, I'm going to bless all the families of the earth. So it's the same. He's passing on the same promise from Abraham to Isaac, now to Jacob. And so he went on, and he found, just like his father had told him and his mother had told him, go off and find a wife from among our relatives in Padan Aram. So he did that. To make a long story short, because it is a kind of a long story, the rather dramatic story of the love story of Jacob when he got there. He ended up with 4 wives and 12 children. And his favorite wife, her name was Rachel. And his less favorite wife, her older sister. Later on, that became not even allowed, according to the rules for the nation. But he loved Rachel more. Leah, the older sister, she ended up having 6 sons. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Gad, Asher, etc. And then she had a servant that she also gave to her husband as a concubine. So they had 2 from that one. And then Rachel had a son, and his name was Joseph. Then at that time, they left Padan Aram. On the way back, Jacob is rather worried because he's going back home, and when he had left home, his older brother had said that he planned to kill Jacob. So he's going home and he's afraid. Now he's going to meet up with his brother. So he sent off some people. Go and give these gifts to them in order to placate him and make his heart better toward you, right? Go to him and give him these gifts. And so that's what he did. But he's still very afraid, because now he heard that Esau is coming with 400 men. Well, why do you need 400 men for a friendly meeting, right? 400 men. So now he's thinking, uh-oh, now I'm done for. Now I'm in trouble. So he's on the way to meet him, and the brother, he's divided up his family strategically so that maybe some can escape. And before that, the night before they're to meet up, he had someone came to him. He's very afraid. He can't sleep. Someone came to him, and they started wrestling. And it turned out that this was actually God who had appeared to him. Because God showed him that he was in control the whole time. As soon as he touched his leg, he became lame. Jacob became lame. And he said, "Let me go now." It was getting close to morning. He said, "Let me go now." He said, "No, I can't let you go. Bless me first. Bless me." So God did that. He says, "Now I'm going to change your name to Israel." So now if you hear the word Jacob and you hear the word Israel, they're the same person. So sometimes you hear in the Bible, they're interchangeable. It's the same person, Jacob or Israel. Jacob with his 12 sons. So they met up, and God helped him and cooled the heart of Esau, so they came up with it to a friendly meeting. So he got home. Just before he got home, though, his wife was pregnant, and she was giving birth, and she died in childbirth. And Rachel, when she died in childbirth, the son, he lived, and his name was Benjamin, the son of my right hand. So Rachel had left behind 2 sons. And because they were the sons of his favorite wife, Jacob loved those 2 sons more. His favorite son, that was now Joseph. Now, later on, Joseph had grown up to be a young man, a teenager, around 17 years old. And his father had a beautiful robe made for him. And so Joseph's brothers were not happy about this. He was showing favoritism. He was the more loved brother. They were jealous. And to make matters worse, one night he had a dream, and he told his brothers the dream. "We were all harvesting grain and putting into these bundles of grain, and your bundles all bowed down to my bundle." "What do you mean? You're the younger brother. We're going to bow down to you? Who do you think you are?" Yeah, would that set well with you? If you're the older brother and the young brother thinks you're going to bow down to him? Right? They were already jealous, and now they're angry. And then he had another dream, and it was the same kind of dream, that they're going to be bowing down to him. Now they're angry. So one day his father send him off. "Go and check up on your brothers, see how they're doing." Now the brothers, they were tending sheep a long way off, and he came toward them, and they saw him a long way off. And they said, "Here he comes, the dreamer." What should we do with him? Let's kill him and see if his dreams come true. See then if his dreams come true. But the older brother, he had done something very bad. He had committed incest, actually, with his stepmother. So, and his father knew about it. So he wanted to get into the good graces of the father. So he came up with a plan to rescue his brother. No, let's not kill him. Just throw him into this dry well. So then he went off. They did that. He went off. They took his coat from him before and then threw him in. And Reuben went off somewhere thinking, when I come back and they're not there, I'm going to rescue him and take him back to my father. So my father would be happy with me. But while he was gone, the brothers looked, and approaching were these merchants, these Ishmaelites, or Midianites, as it elsewhere it calls them. The Ishmaelites, the descendants of Ishmael, and they were approaching, and they said, no, let's not kill him. It was actually Jacob, the brother, the fourth in line, Jacob, who came up with this plan. Jacob. I said Jacob, sorry, that's the father. Judah, sorry, I get the names mixed up sometimes. No wonder then if I get your names mixed up. So Judah came up with this plan, and so that's what they did. They said, let's sell them to the Ishmaelites. That way, it won't be us who kill them. We can't be blamed for the harm. And we'll get some money out of it. So they took him out of the well and sold him to the Ishmaelites. And there he was taken off. Meanwhile, the brother got back. Reuben comes back and he sees, where's Joseph? What'd you do with Joseph? Oh, look here, we got some cash here. 20 pieces of silver for him. Now our troubles are over. What on earth? What are we going to tell our father? What are you thinking? What are we going to tell our father now? Oh, no problem, we got a plan. So they took his coat, that well-known coat, and they ripped it up a bit, and they killed a goat, put the blood on it. Father, do you recognize this coat? Oh no. He's surely been killed by some lion. And the father is mourning for him. He mourned for him for many days. Meanwhile, Joseph is taken to Egypt. And while he's in Egypt, he's sold to the captain of the king's guard, the Pharaoh, that's their word for king, in Misraim, that is Egypt. And he's sold there. But God had not forgotten him. He was rejected by his brothers, but God had not forgotten him. So God had other plans. He was taken into Egypt, sold there, and he was serving Pharaoh's captain of the guard, Potiphar, very faithfully, trustworthy. And Potiphar saw that everything that Joseph put his hands to turned out really well. God was blessing him, and God blessed Potiphar because of Joseph. So he gave him responsibility over everything. But then you remember what happened. Potiphar's wife started to like him. Not just like him. She wanted to go to bed with him. And she kept going to him and kept trying to force him and kept trying. And he kept saying, no, I can't do that. Your husband has entrusted me with anything. He wouldn't say no to me on anything except when it comes to you. because you are his wife. So I can't do that. I can't do that to God and to your husband. He had a fear or respect of God. He knew that even if even if Potiphar never learned about it, that God saw. And so he had respect for God, and he did not do what she said. Well, one day, she had made sure that all the other servants were not in the house when Joseph came in to do his responsibilities in the house, and she grabbed him and tried to force him to be with her, to lay with her. And so he ran. He ran. That's the right responsibility. That's the right response. Whenever there's sin, there's temptation, the response should be to run. Don't say, I can handle this. No, we can't handle it. Run. So he ran out, but now she was really angry. Her infatuation had now turned into anger, hatred. And so she accused him of trying to rape her. So when Potiphar got back, she told him this sob story, this lie, and he ended up being thrown in prison. He'd done the right thing. Now he's thrown in prison. Maybe some of us would give up by this time. God, I'm trying to do the right thing the whole time, and now I end up like this. But even there, Joseph was trustworthy. Oh, something's not happening. There we are. The guard in the prison, he noticed that Joseph, he gave him responsibilities. Joseph did his very best all the time, and it always turned out well. So he gave him responsibility of everything there. If there were other prisoners in there, then he took care of their needs. And so one day, the king got very angry at two of his servants. The one servant, he was the one who served him the drinks. And you probably know why he would have someone like that with a responsibility like that. It was actually a very important responsibility, an official. They were trusted by the king. Because, as politicians, often happens with politicians, you get enemies. High politicians get enemies. So sometimes they would try to poison the kings and other high officials. So instead of the king getting poisoned, they would pass it off to this wine tester. So the king then wouldn't die, but this wine tester. But since everyone knew that, then it was fairly safe, actually. So he was the wine tester. But the king got angry with him. He also had a baker, a chief baker. And he got angry with them, so they were thrown in prison. One night, the two fellows had dreams. And Joseph, whose responsibility it was to take care of them, he noticed that something had changed. They were not looking so happy. So he said, tell me, what's the problem? What's the problem here? He said, well, I had a dream. Tell me your dream. Isn't it God who gives the interpretation of dreams? Tell me your dream. So he said, the wine tester, he said, well, this is what I dreamed. I went out and I saw this vine, and it had 3 clusters of grapes on that vine. And I took those 3 clusters of grapes and I squeezed them into a cup. And the king drank from that cup. Joseph said, wow, that's good news. In 3 days from now, you are going to be released out of the prison, and you're going to be returned to your position as a wine tester. And and you'll be serving the king again. And that encouraged the other guy because he'd had a dream too. So he said, well, this was my dream. I had 3 baskets of bread and cake on my head, and in the top basket there were these birds that came down and started eating out of that 3rd basket. And Joseph said, uh-oh, not so good. In 3 days you also will be released from prison, and on that 3rd day, when you're released from prison, he will kill you, have your body impaled on a pole, and the birds will come and eat your body. But Joseph said to the wine tester, he said, remember me when you return to your position. Put in a good word for me to the king. Well, 3 days later, lo and behold, here comes some people. You're released from prison. Took them out. It was the king's birthday. A big occasion. And so the wine tester was returned to his position, and the other was killed. But the wine tester forgot. And all the excitement, perhaps, and all his responsibilities, he forgot about Joseph. Joseph was still languishing in prison. Done nothing wrong. Until one day, the king had a dream. Actually, 2 dreams. And the king, he was very troubled by these dreams. They're very strange dreams. He's very troubled by them. And he talked to his wise men, he talked to his magicians, he talked to all his officials, and nobody could give him the meaning of these dreams. And then the wine tester, he remembered. King, while I was in prison, that time that you were angry with me, hate to remind you of it, but when I was in prison, there was a man who told me what was going to happen to me, and it happened. I had a dream, and he interpreted it for me, and it happened just like he said. Well, send for him then. So the king sent him, and Joseph was brought before him. They cleaned him up. Probably wasn't that presentable to the king in the prison. They cleaned him up. They brought him before the king. And the king says, I hear that you can interpret no dream is too difficult for you to interpret. Well, Joseph had his heart in the right place. He said, King, nobody can do that, but God can do it. He knows, and he can interpret the dream for you. Tell me your dream. The king said, well, I had 2 dreams. First, I was asleep, and I dreamt that I was looking at the side of the Nile, and there were these 7 fat cows. It's the best I've ever seen in all of Egypt. 7 fat cows grazing along the bank of the Nile. And as I was watching, then up came out of the Nile 7 really skinny cows. I've never seen such skinny, such awful looking cows. And they came and they ate the 7 fat cows and still remained skinny. And I was amazed by that. Then I fell back to sleep and I dreamt there were these 7 heads of grain. Beautiful, bowed down with weight. Have you ever seen, I've looked on the fields in the Philippines when it's been done right. The grain, the heads of grain just hanging down, bowed down, almost falling to the ground with weight. Beautiful, beautiful. I saw 7 beautiful heads of grain, and then as I was watching, then came up these 7 really wind-blown heads of grain, and I've never seen it so bad in all of Egypt. And they ate the 7 fat ones, and they still remained skinny. Well, king, this is what it means. There are going to come 7 years, very bountiful harvests, beautiful harvests for 7 years, more than enough for anyone to eat. And then after that, there are going to come 7 such bad years, hit by the hot winds of the desert, that you won't even remember the 7 abundant years because it'll be so bad. But this is what I would do, king. I would choose someone who is trustworthy, and I would set them in a position to take care of the harvest, to take in a portion of the harvest, so that when, after the 7 years of plenty, when that's done and the famine comes, then you'll have food to eat. Well, the king said, who better than you? Since the gods have given you wisdom, the Spirit of God is in you, who better than you to do that, to be entrusted with that? So the king took him, the former prisoner, the former slave, and he took him and rose him up to be the second in the whole kingdom, the vice king, if there is such a position. And he said, I give you my own chariots to use, and I give you my signet ring, so that anything that you stamp, that's how they signed things back then, anything that you stamp with my stamp, that will be approved. Anything that you say goes. And so Joseph went out and did it. Just like before, Joseph was faithful in everything that he did. During those 7 years, he went throughout the whole land of Egypt and had cities built, barns built, storehouses built, these whole store cities built, cities that are built close to where the grain would be harvested. So they went through the whole place and brought in the grain. And there was so much grain that they gave up counting. It's just huge mountains of grain that they harvested during that time. Then came the hungry years. What time is it? Make sure I don't keep you too long. And then Joseph was given the responsibility for distributing this. For 1 whole year, the people were coming. The people were coming that first year of famine. They came to Joseph. So all the money in all the land of Egypt and the lands around them, the countries around them also had famine, even up to Canaan land, the area that's called now some people call it Palestine or Israel. They also had famine. So all the money in that whole area was coming to the king of Egypt. He was becoming a very rich man. I think he was very happy with Joseph at this point. Very good planning, Joseph. Good job. He saved the lives of those in Egypt and the other countries around him. The one who had been rejected, sold for 20 pieces of silver by his brothers, now was saving lives. The second year, no money. He said, the people came to him and said, we don't have any money to buy with. Give me your cattle and sheep and goats. So they gave them to him. And so he fed them for another year. After 2 years, they didn't have sheep or cattle or anything else. So they came to sell themselves as slaves to Pharaoh for food. Well, he said, no, okay. This is the arrangement. Here it is. I will give you your food and what will end up being your seed. Later, I'll take care of you. I'll give you that, but then later on, when you end up getting harvests, you have to pay 1/5 of all of your grain to the king. So that became their rule for a very long time after that. Anyway, so Joseph ended up being the savior of that whole nation, and later of his brothers, his own family, the ones who had sold him. Isn't that amazing? They had their plans, their evil plans, but God turned it around to make it for the salvation, to the saving of the lives of many people. Next time I will continue this story and see what happens with Joseph. Joseph and his father and all those others ended up coming down to be with him so that he could save them, give them food, take care of them for the remainder of those 7 years. I'll tell you that story about how that came to be next time. Remember, way back during the time of Joseph's great-grandfather Abraham, God had said to Abraham, this is what's going to happen with your descendants. They are going to end up being strangers in a foreign land. And they're going to be there for 400 years. And during those 400 years, they're going to end up being mistreated and enslaved in that land. But then I will save them. I will take them out and free them. So now, Joseph is in Egypt, and his family end up being in Egypt. You know what? Abram was one person. He ended up with one son. His son had two sons. Remember? Jacob and Esau. And Jacob, or Israel, his other name, Israel had 12 sons. And by the time they got to Egypt, you know how many there were? Depending on how you count them, because Joseph was already in Egypt. 70, plus Joseph and his family. He ended up getting married down there and had a couple of children. 70. So God was fulfilling that promise too. All of those promises God was fulfilling. He always keeps his promises. He is faithful. And even the bad plans of people, he uses to fulfill his promises. Because he is all-wise and knowing and all-powerful. And no one can thwart him. No one can pull one over on him. Isn't he good? So sometimes we ended up in difficult situations. People do bad things to us. You know, God is able also to turn those things around because his plans are always perfect and good, and he is wise. Thank you. That's all for today.